Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. I must admit that when I saw this motion, I thought that it was a decent attempt by the minority to right some of the wrongs that have been plaguing our system. And by system, I mean the official system, since we're talking about the Tobago House of Assembly over the last couple decades. I smiled because the first resolution is very much one that I think we can all agree to. Violence is not something that we should allow to happen. And yes, we should all condemn violence in all forms. So I thought that that was good. When I read the second the resolution, Madam Presiding Officer, I became a little concerned for several reasons. And some of those reasons do include the fact, as the minority councillor did state in the opening remarks, that many of the deficiencies that we are seeing in the system now are actually there because the processes and because the policies and because all of those things that are necessary to make it work are not in place. And the reality is that the group of individuals who had the responsibility to put them in place is the same organization that the Minority Council belongs to. It is a fact that the last 2 years of COVID has caused all of us to be a little battered and bruised. Some of us really a lot more than others. Those of us who were blessed enough to continue being employed, we felt probably a little less harsh response to what was going on. But the last 2 years really has been difficult for a lot of Tobagonians. It is important to recognize, though, that, and I will say it again, because maybe we need to remind people that Rome was not built in a day. We need to remind Tobagonians that we really have just been here for under 6 months. We need to remind Tobagonians that the system that we have met has been the system in place for the last 21 years. So we need to be realistic. I would like to ask the minority councillor to probably indicate to the minority leader that the words of my colleague, Mr. Sonny Craig, they were very clear. He indicated that the motion was a little late. I don't think, and I could be wrong, that he indicated that it was irrelevant. So it is inaccurate to try to state that my colleague is saying something that is so heinous is irrelevant. He did indicate that it was late for very good reasons that it was late. It is late. Now let's go back to one of the things that I One of the things that I continually speak about is the fact that when we are to fix a problem, it is absolutely critical for us to understand the cause of the problem before we can suggest solutions. I indicated in a program a couple weeks ago that we in Trinidad and Tobago need to stop being reactive to things happening. And we need to take very clear and decisive decisions about how we as individuals respond and how we as individuals breed this kind of culture that has caused us to be so violent. How exactly do we treat with our young boys and our young girls? Let's just think about it. We very frequently say to a little 3-year-old girl who has fallen and bruised her knee and is crying, we run to her, we hug her, we kiss the boo-boo. You know, we show kindness and compassion and those things to our young girls. But a 3-year-old boy who has fallen and who has hurt himself and is crying, many of us say to him, "Stop crying. You're behaving like a girl. What are you crying for?" And at that moment, you are actually telling this 3-year-old child who is hurt, who is feeling pain, that the pain and the hurt that I am now feeling does not matter, and that I am not allowed to express that hurt and that pain. And then we become surprised when that 3-year-old boy is now 20, 25, 30, and does not know how to express hurt and pain in a way that is not violent. You have to ask yourself, what are we doing to culture our boys and our girls? Another quick example. The fact that when that little boy cries, you say to him, "You are behaving like a girl." The fact that every single time a male does something and you are trying to insult him, you compare him to a woman, in and of itself is saying that you think that women are less than, you think that women are not equals. Because if an insult is to call a little boy a little girl, you're behaving like a girl, that is an insult. You in yourself have accepted the fact that boys and girls are not equal. And I ask you to think about the reverse. Will you ever say to a little girl, in your hope of trying to punish, that they are behaving like a boy? We don't do that. It is only in the reverse where we say you are behaving like a girl. A couple weeks ago, I did a program, Madam Presiding Officer, in the East. I am continually called to do programs as it relates to safer sex and safer sexuality with our young people. And I did this program with several different groups, and I asked them several questions. I asked, if a 30-year-old man has sex with a 13-year-old girl, is that wrong? And in 2 or 3 of the groups, they all say, yes, that is obviously wrong. A big hardback man having sex with a 13-year-old girl, that is obviously wrong. And I asked the same question. If a 30-year-old woman has sex with a 13-year-old boy, is that wrong? And in every single group, they said, that is okay. She bringing him up. She giving him experience. And these are young people who have already begun to accept that there is this imbalance among the genders. I also, and this is the last example I'll give to show that we need to be very conscious when we are standing here and saying these things. We need to be very conscious of what we actually do. I asked that same group, talking about sexual harassment, which I am so happy you brought up, Minority Councillor. We asked in those same groups, what happens when a bunch of fellas on the corner passing and a young girl pass? You know, the typical, they always able to say, psst, dark thing, sweetness, shorty, you're looking good. They all recognize that that was how we respond. And Madam Presiding Officer, I asked the girls in the group, do you like it when young fellas do that? They all very quickly shouted, no. Madam Presiding Officer, what happened after that is what I am really coming to. What happened after that was the young men in those groups started saying, but all you like it, all you're accustomed to it, and all you just be wearing these short clothes and what we to call all you and ting, 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 ting. They automatically start pushing back. And then I asked the young girls again the same question. I asked them, I said, girls, do you all like it when the young men do that? And the first time they answered, they all screamed, no, we don't like it. The second time I asked the question after the young men started pushing back, they all then said, not really. Some were very silent. Because, Madam Presiding Officer, they had recognized at that point that their no did not mean anything, and that their no was pushed back on, and that their no did not have value. Now, I say all of this, Madam Presiding Officer, to indicate that as much as we want to just get up and give fancy speeches and that kind of stuff, there is some very deep-seated work that we as Trinbagonians, we as Tobagonians need to do within our own families, within our own circles, to help treat with this issue of domestic violence. Let me segue a little bit into what is happening at the Division of Health, Wellness and Social Protection. When we saw this motion, I quickly ran to some of my social workers again, who, by the way, one of the reasons they are unable to respond as quickly as they should is because the unit is heavily understaffed, which was one of the reasons, one of the things we did recently was send out notices for more social workers and therapeutic counselors and so forth to be hired. Because as much as we are asking them to do the work, we need to also support them by ensuring that their workload is not too much for them to bear. They are still only human beings. So I asked them, given that this is the motion that I am expected to debate on, can you tell me what is in place now? What is in place? What have you been doing? What has been going on? Where has this been going? Talk to me. And one of the first things they said to me was, Dr. Faith, we had a whole program that we was planning to do. We had a whole proposal that included going into our communities and chatting with the youths and chatting with the older people and chatting with the boys versus chatting with the girls and whatnot. We had all of those, and then they pulled out the proposals that were dated years ago. And then I said to them, what happened? And the response was, those above did not think that it was a priority. All they wanted us to do was to give out the food cards and to give out the equipment and to give that kind of stuff. They did not put priority in these things because they would not have been able to show. We had a 400 and something food card in my back pocket. So it is kind of very annoying to have the Minority Council come here today and talk about the fact that the social workers and the therapeutic counselors and so forth, that they are not doing enough when they have been trying. And it is your colleagues who did not give them the support to do what they needed to do. I join my colleague, Assemblyman Sonny Craig, in saying the motion is late. Let me also indicate that we have the audacity to come here and stand up and talk about the fact that we do not have a shelter for women who are in domestic violence situations. When I was at the Division of Health Wellness, and it was Health and Social Services back then, I have to tell you how long it was. One of the things that was implemented then was WeTech, Women Empowerment Technology Center. And that place was a place where women, it was a shelter that women were supposed to be able to go to, women and their children were supposed to go to when they are in need. I showed up at the Division of Now Health, Wellness and Social Protection and asked, where is that shelter? And the answer is they're ducking their head and saying, well, those who were in charge did not see it as a priority, so it fizzled away. And then I had to ask them, I understand, because when I was in the Minority Council, there was talk about a building that was purchased for some millions of dollars that we were supposed to use to house children, to house possibly women, all of that. We spent millions of dollars on that property. A couple weeks ago, I went with my staff to view the property. And I left almost in tears because the whole thing has cracks all over it. And when they look at it, when my PIU looks at it, they say, Dr. Faith, we can't use that building at all. That building is not safe. The amount of work we would have to put in to make that building safe, it then makes sense trying to rehabilitate that building. That building was purchased within the last couple of years, during the period where the organization that you all represent right now were the ones who took taxpayers' money. And purchased that building that we now cannot use because it was, well, I don't even know what was the rationale for spending the money. But we are here now, and we are in a position where we cannot use it. My social support staff, what they are currently doing, because we just looked at the Auditor General report again, and as soon as I saw the Auditor General report, I actually said to my administrator, let us sit down let us sit down right now to figure out what we need to put in place, because anytime the auditors come to look at this tenure, I do not want my good name associated with any of those adverse reports. So we sat down and we realized that several things need to happen. We need to have very good policies in place. We need to figure out how we can actually provide swift support in a way that actually makes sense, in a way that actually fulfills the Auditor General and fulfills the financial regulations and those things, without having to boast that we have a 400 and something food card in my back pocket. My social workers, my social support staff, they've been tasked with coming up with that policy so that we know when we say left, right, up, down, it is because that is the policy and we are going to follow it. Some of the programs that were not agreed to includes dealing with anger management. includes parental classes, includes substance abuse prevention, includes life skill training, includes giving out more money for the REACH grant and so forth, which is a business development grant. Those were the programs that was written in that proposal that I looked at. And those were the programs that they said to me were not a priority. So don't come. Sorry. Don't come today and try to pretend you are doing something when, yes, I will say it, you had the opportunity, your organization had the opportunity to do it and did not do it over the last umpteen years. Talking about perpetrators, we actually were supposed to have a graduation within the prison system this week. Because again, my social support staff went out of their way and actually implemented a full prison program where the prisoners were learning about, dealing with their anger and dealing with their emotions and how we could resolve these issues so that when they go back into the system, they go back better. When representatives from the prison system actually met with me, they actually said, Dr. Faith, we were so excited about this because we are actually seeing the results. We are actually seeing that some of our charges are now in a better position than when they were before. So the programs are there. What we need is the kind of leadership that actually prioritizes those kinds of programs so that the support staff, the social support staff that are doing the best that they can throughout the various divisions, not just mine, can do their work. Now, I am very, very happy, and I'm wrapping up. I am very, 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 very happy that the minority leader also spoke about the fact that one of the problems we have is that if you have a client who is a child, the child needs to be seen by education people, and while the adults need to be seen by Division of Health, Wellness, and Social Support people. Because what he is in fact speaking about is the reason we brought the motion that we brought last month to the House, to have a case conferencing model in place so that all of these social support people can actually work together on their cases. That policy will be done by the end of June. And as a matter of fact, my social support people are telling me that even though the policy is not done yet, they have already started doing it, where depending on the case, they are already sitting in a single room, not necessarily physically, but they are already sitting in the same room with the social workers from different arms of the THA, ensuring that the kind of service we provide to our clients is absolutely the best kind of service. Up until today, this morning, as a matter of fact, I was in a meeting with UN Women, because UN Women are looking at various models of ensuring that our cities, of ensuring that our communities are,
Member, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. This meeting with UN Women this morning was part of us partnering to ensure that we use tried and true and tested models to develop the kinds of systems that we are talking about. We are continuing to provide the kind of leadership, to provide the kind of support to our social support staff that is necessary. Before I wrap up, I would like to actually give two numbers that have been in place at the Division of Health, Wellness, and Social Protection. And these numbers, one is for therapeutic counselors, because we actually have a decent cadre of counselors on board. They are an amazing bunch of people who know what they're talking about and know what to do. If you are in a situation where you need therapeutic counseling, you can call or WhatsApp 683-8341, 683-8341. If you need an assessment, social support intervention, you can call or WhatsApp 683-8347. Yes, those are both numbers that I met while here. But we are ensuring that the individuals who answer those calls are totally supported in their job. And because of that, Madam Presiding Officer, we are recommending that we do, in fact, indeed, support an amended version of this motion. We will go with, whereas the Tobago House of Assembly Act 40 of 1996, via the 5th schedule, is responsible for all matters relating to social welfare. And whereas the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020 resulted in stay-at-home measures, and whereas there has been an alarming increase in incidents of domestic violence and child abuse directly affecting men, women, and children, we will even go with, be it resolved that this House joins in condemnation of these heinous acts of violence and abuse meted out to citizens throughout the country. But we will amend the motion to change the last resolution to, instead of read that this House mandates the Tobago House of Assembly to develop and implement strategies to treat with the meaningful engagement of both victims and perpetrators. We then have it read, be it further resolved that this THA Executive Council continue to support the work of our social support staff within the Tobago House of Assembly and the larger Tobago community, including NGOs, CBOs, in managing these issues. With that, Madam Presiding Officer, I beg to move.
Honorable members, the question is that the motion be amended by deleting the last resolution that reads, be it further resolved that this House mandates the Tobago House of Assembly to develop and implement strategies to treat with meaningful engagement of both victims and perpetrators of these incidents. And inserting the words, be it further resolved that this THA Executive Council continue to support the work of our social support staff within the Tobago House of Assembly and the larger Tobago community, including NGOs and CBOs, in managing these issues. Members taking part in this debate hereafter may speak on the original motion and the proposed amendment.